said I was too old for him. They said a woman of 43 had no business looking at a man of 28 with anything other than maternal advice. But when the roof of my historic inn collapsed 3 days before the biggest gala of the year, the only person who came to save me wasn't one of the wealthy donors or my ex-husband. It was him. And standing there in the freezing snow, watching him weld iron with sparks flying around us, I realized I wasn't just worried about saving the building. I was worried about losing my heart.
The snow in Oakhaven didn't fall so much as it conspired. It was a heavy, wet blanket that had been descending upon the green mountains of Vermont for 3 days straight, silencing the usually bustling streets and turning the ancient pines into bowed, ghostly sentinels. Inside the Silver Birch Inn, the silence was a luxury Elena Vance could not afford. Elena stood in the center of the grand ballroom, a clipboard clutched against her chest like a shield. At 43, Elena was the proprietor of the most historic estate in the county. She was a woman composed of sharp angles and soft cashmere, her dark hair pulled back in a French twist that had defied gravity for 10 hours. She stared up at the chandeliers, counting bulbs. 1, 2, 3, a flickering filament on the 4th tier. "Thomas," she called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous room. It was a voice that had learned to command attention not through volume, but through precision. The 4th tier on the east, chandelier, it's twitching again. Thomas, the inn's 60-year-old caretaker, emerged from the shadows of the service corridor, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. "It's the humidity, Elle. Old wiring hates the damp. I'll get the lift." "Thank you," she sighed, checking her watch. It was a slender Cartier tank, a gift from her ex-husband on their 10th anniversary, 5 years before he left her for a Pilates instructor named Kayla with a C. She wore it not out of sentiment, but because it kept perfect time, and Elena valued reliability above all else. It was December 28th, the annual Gilded New Year's Eve charity gala, the single most important event on the Oakhaven social calendar, was in 72 hours. The governor was coming, 2 senators were coming, and, perhaps most stressfully, the Board of Historic Preservation was coming to decide if the Silver Birch Inn still deserved its 5-star historic rating. Elena walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her reflection stared back. Tired eyes, the faint map of laugh lines around her mouth that she had stopped trying to hide with concealer, and a posture that was rigid with tension. She felt the weight of the mortgage, the staff salaries, and the sheer crushing responsibility of maintaining a legacy she had inherited from her grandmother. She turned away from the glass and walked toward the Solarium. The Solarium was the jewel of the Silver Birch. Built in 1902, it was a cathedral of glass and wrought iron attached to the south side of the ballroom. It housed rare orchids, a century-old weeping fig, and a heating system that cost more to run than a small sedan. It was where the VIP cocktail hour was scheduled to take place. As she pushed open the double oak doors, the humid, earthy scent of the Solarium washed over her. It was usually her sanctuary. But today, the wind was howling outside, rattling the panes in their iron skeletons. Crack. The sound was sharp, like a gunshot in a library. Elena froze. She looked up. High above, near the central cupola, a massive bough from the ancient oak tree outside, heavy with 3 days of wet snow, was groaning against the glass. "No," she whispered. "No, please, not now." As if the universe were waiting for her plea just to deny it, the wind gusted. The bough shifted. With a sickening crunch of metal and the shriek of shattering glass, the branch punched through the solarium roof. Shards of glass rained down like jagged diamonds, smashing into the slate floor and shredding the leaves of the prize ferns. Freezing wind and snow instantly swirled into the tropical warmth of the room, creating a chaotic vortex of steam and ice. Elena didn't scream. She didn't cry. She stood frozen for a heartbeat, watching the snow accumulate on the floor of her perfect venue. Then, the adrenaline hit. "Thomas!" she screamed, spinning on her heel. "Thomas, cut the heat. Get the tarps. Now!" 2 hours later, the solarium was a disaster zone. The hole in the roof was 10 feet wide. The temperature in the room had plummeted to 30 degrees. The rare orchids were being hastily relocated to the kitchen, and the floor was a treacherous slick of melting snow and glass. Elena sat in her office, her head in her hands. The phone on her mahogany desk was off the hook. She had called 4 contractors. All of them had laughed, politely but firmly. It was the week between Christmas and New Year's. Everyone was booked, on vacation, or snowed in. "Mrs. Vance?" Elena looked up. It was her assistant, Sarah, looking pale. "There's a truck outside. He says he heard on the scanner that we had a structural breach. He says he can help." Elena stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Who is it? Miller? Jenkins?" "No, ma'am. It's Liam Callaway." Elena frowned. The name triggered a vague memory. Callaway? The old carpenter's son? The grandson, I think. He just moved back from Chicago. Last month. He started that restoration firm down on Main. "Send him in," Elena said, rubbing her temples. "If he has a pulse and a ladder, send him in." A moment later, the door opened and the air in the office seemed to shift. Liam Callaway was not what she expected. She remembered him as a gangly teenager who used to mow the lawns of the neighbors down the street. The man standing in her doorway was neither gangly nor a teenager. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with broad shoulders that filled out a Carhartt work jacket that had seen actual work. His hair was a dark, unruly brown, dusted with melting snowflakes, and he had a short, well-kept beard that framed a strong jaw. But it was his eyes that caught her, clear, intelligent hazel eyes that scanned the room before landing on her. He looked to be about 28 or 29, the prime of his youth. He radiated a kind of kinetic energy, a vitality that made Elena suddenly feel very aware of the gray cashmere shawl she had wrapped around her shoulders. "Mrs. Vance?" he said. His voice was deep, gravelly, but warm. He didn't shout, but the resonance of it seemed to vibrate against the books on the shelves. "I'm Liam. I heard you had a situation with the Solarium." "Mr. Callaway," Elena said, keeping her voice professional. "A situation is a mild way to put it. I have a 10-foot hole in my roof, a gala in 3 days, and a blizzard parking itself over the county." He nodded, stepping further into the room. He didn't look intimidated by her tone, nor by the opulence of the office. "I took a look from the outside before I came in. It's the structural rib near the cupola, right? The cast iron snapped?" Elena blinked. "Yes, exactly. I have a mobile welding unit in my truck," Liam said, unzipping his jacket to reveal a flannel shirt and a thermal Henley underneath. "And I have polycarbonate sheets that can temporarily seal the glass until custom panes can be ordered from Europe. I can get it weather-tight by tonight and visually passable by tomorrow afternoon." Elena stared at him. It sounded too good to be true. "You're available? It's 2 days before New Year's Eve. Shouldn't you be at a party? Or skiing?" Liam offered a small, crooked smile. It transformed his face, shifting him from stoic tradesman to something dangerously charming. "I'm new back in town, not many parties to go to yet. Besides, I hate seeing a building like this bleed heat. It hurts the architecture." He spoke about the building as if it were a living thing. Elena felt a strange thrum in her chest. "Your rate?" she asked, falling back on business to steady herself. "Double time for the holiday? Triple for the hazard of the ice?" He named a price that was high, but fair given the desperation. "Done," Elena said. "But I need it perfect, Liam, not just patched, perfect. The governor will be standing under that glass in 72 hours. Liam met her gaze, his expression sobering. I know who you are, Mrs. Vance, and I know what this place means to the town. I don't do halfway work. He extended a hand. His palm was rough, warm, and callous. When Elena shook it, her own hand felt small and delicate. The contact lasted a fraction of a second longer than was strictly necessary. Call me Elena, she said, withdrawing her hand. Mrs. Vance is my mother-in-law. Liam's eyes crinkled at the corners. Elena, I'll get my gear. The storm intensified as night fell. The wind battered the north face of the inn, but in the solarium, the battle was being fought with acetylene torches and determination. Elena couldn't leave. She told herself she was staying to supervise, to ensure the assets were protected. But in truth, she found herself drawn to the solarium. She had set up a temporary station on a wrought iron bench near the entrance, wrapped in a thick wool coat, reviewing catering menus under the light of a portable lantern. But her eyes kept drifting up. Liam was 20 feet in the air, balanced on a hydraulic scissor lift. He had set up halogen work lights that cast long, dramatic shadows against the swirling snow outside. He had stripped off his heavy jacket, working in just his thermal shirt and gloves. She watched the way he moved. There was an economy to his motion, no wasted energy. He cleaned the jagged iron with a grinder, sending showers of orange sparks cascading down like fireworks. He measured, he cut, he welded. Around 10 p.m., the grinding stopped. The silence that followed was heavy. You're still here, his voice came from above. Elena looked up, startled. I live here, effectively, and I'm the captain of the ship. I don't sleep while there's a hole in the hull. The lift hummed as he lowered it to the ground. He stepped off, pulling off his welding goggles. There was a smear of grease on his cheekbone, and he looked tired, but his eyes were bright. The structural integrity is back, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. The rib is welded. Now I need to clear the broken glass and set the polycarbonate. It's going to be a long night. You need coffee, Elena said, standing up. And food? Have you eaten? Liam checked his watch. I had a protein bar at noon. Unacceptable. Elena shook her head. Come with me. The kitchen is closed, but I know where the chef hides the good cheese. They sat in the massive stainless steel kitchen of the inn, illuminated only by the light of the stove hood. It was intimate in a way the ballroom wasn't. Elena had plated up some aged cheddar, prosciutto, crusty bread, and a bowl of grapes. She poured 2 glasses of a robust Cabernet. So, Elena said, watching him eat with the appetite of a man who had been laboring in the cold for 6 hours. You came back to Oakhaven. Why? Most people your age leave and never look back. Liam swallowed a piece of bread and took a sip of the wine. I was in Chicago, working for a big firm, glass and steel skyscrapers. It was impressive, but cold, soulless. He looked at her. I missed the history. I missed buildings that have ghosts in them. Ghosts? Elena raised an eyebrow. Metaphorical ones, memories, like this place. He gestured around. I used to ride my bike past this inn when I was 10. I thought it was a castle. I thought a queen lived here. Elena laughed, a genuine throaty sound she hadn't made in months. And now you find out it's just a tired woman with a mortgage and a clipboard. Liam stopped eating. He looked at her, his gaze direct and unblinking. I don't see a tired woman. I see the person, keeping the castle standing. The compliment was simple, devoid of the usual flattery she received from the wealthy donors or the politicians. It felt like he was seeing her, not the hostess. Elena felt a flush rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the wine. She became acutely aware of the age difference. He was 28. He had his whole life ahead of him, messy mistakes, new loves, career changes. She was 43. She felt established, cemented, perhaps even finished. "You're young, Liam," she said, her voice dropping. "You see romance in the struggle. Give it 15 years. The struggle just feels like heavy lifting." "Maybe," Liam conceded. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the steel table. "Or maybe you've just been lifting it alone for too long." The silence stretched between them, charged and heavy. Elena looked at his hands, strong, capable hands that fixed broken things. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, she wondered what those hands would feel like on her skin. She stood up abruptly. "We should get back to work. The polycarbonate won't install itself." Liam watched her for a second, reading the retreat in her posture. He didn't push. He just nodded slowly. Right, back to work. By 3 a.m., the hole was sealed. Liam had cut the transparent polycarbonate sheets to fit the Victorian curves of the roof perfectly. From the floor, you could hardly tell it wasn't the original glass, save for the lack of dust. Elena was asleep on the wrought iron bench in the solarium, wrapped in her coat. Liam descended the lift quietly. He packed his tools with soft clicks and clacks. He walked over to where she slept. Her face was softened in sleep, the lines of worry erased. She looked younger, vulnerable. He hesitated, then took his heavy Carhartt jacket and draped it gently over her legs. He stood there for a long moment, listening to the wind howl outside, safely separated from them by his work. He knew he should leave. He knew she was a client, and he was the hired help, and she was 15 years his senior and out of his league. But when she had laughed in the kitchen, he had felt a jolt that he hadn't felt in Chicago in 5 years. He wrote a note on the back of a receipt and left it on the table beside her. Then he let himself out into the snow. December 29th and 30th were a blur of frantic activity. The storm broke, leaving Oak Haven buried under 2 feet of pristine, glittering white. The town plows roared to life. Elena was a whirlwind of management. She dealt with the caterers, the florists, and the band, but every time she walked through the solarium, she paused. The repair held. It was solid. The room was warm again. The orchids returned to their perches. Liam returned on the 30th to check the seals. Elena found him on a ladder, inspecting the caulking. "It held," she said, approaching the base of the ladder. Liam climbed down. He was wearing a different flannel today, red and black buffalo check. He looked rested, shaven. "I told you, I don't do halfway work." "I found your jacket," she said, holding out the heavy canvas coat she had been carrying. "And the note." The note had said simply, "The castle is safe. Sleep well, Queen." Liam took the jacket. Their fingers brushed. The static electricity of the dry winter air sparked between them, audible and sharp. Neither pulled away immediately. "I need to pay you," Elena said, her voice slightly breathless. "Send me the invoice." "I will," Liam said, "but I have a favor to ask instead of a surcharge." "Oh?" Elena crossed her arms, trying to regain her equilibrium. "And what is that?" "I want to come to the gala." Elena blinked. "The gala? Liam, it's a black tie event. Tickets are $500. It's mostly donors and the geriatric bridge club." "I know," Liam smiled. "But I fixed the roof. I want to see it hold up when the music is playing. Besides," he paused, his gaze dropping to her lips before returning to her eyes. "I realized I don't have a date for New Year's Eve." Elena's heart did a traitorous double beat. "You want to come as my guest? If you'll have me." "People will talk, Liam," she said quietly. "This is a small town. The divorced innkeeper and the contractor 15 years her junior. It's a cliché." "Let them talk." Liam stepped closer. He was well inside her personal space now. She could smell sawdust and pine soap. "Since when does a woman who runs a literal empire care about what the town gossips say?" Elena looked up at him. She saw the challenge in his eyes, but also the sincerity. She thought of her empty house. She thought of the cold perfection of her life. Wear a tuxedo? She whispered. If you show up in flannel, I'll have security throw you out. Liam's grin was blinding. Yes, ma'am. December 31st dawned with a deceptive brilliance. The storm had passed, leaving the sky a piercing cornflower blue that reflected off the 3 feet of snow blanketing Oak Haven. It was blindingly bright, the kind of winter day that looked innocent through a window, but bit with teeth of ice the moment you stepped outside. For Elena, the day was a blur of logistical warfare. The florists arrived at 8 Taujakem, carrying armfuls of white hydrangeas, frosted eucalyptus, and winter berries. The caterers followed at 9 Tas, their trucks rumbling in the delivery bay, offloading crates of lobster tails and cases of Veuve Clicquot. Elena moved through the inn like a general on the front lines. She checked the linens, crisp, the silverware, polished, and the lighting, dimmed to an amber glow. But beneath the layer of professional efficiency, there was a hum of anxiety that had nothing to do with the Board of Historic Preservation and everything to do with the man she had agreed to let walk on her arm. She hadn't seen Liam since the day before. He had texted her once, a simple message at noon. Don't stress, the roof will hold, you just worry about looking the part. She had stared at the text for 5 minutes, analyzing the tone. Was it flirtatious, supportive, presumptuous? By 6 p.m., the sun had dipped behind the mountains, painting the snow in shades of violet and bruised indigo. The inn was transformed. The grand ballroom was a sea of gold and white. The solarium, now healed and heated, glowed like a lantern attached to the side of the house. Elena retreated to her private suite on the 3rd floor to dress. Usually for these events, Elena wore armor, high-necked gowns, stiff fabrics, severe colors like black or charcoal, clothes that said, I am the owner, not I am a woman. Tonight, she hesitated. Hanging on the back of her door was the black gown she had intended to wear, but lying on her bed, still in the garment bag from a boutique in New York, she hadn't visited in 2 years, was something else. It was midnight blue velvet, off the shoulder. It cinched at the waist and flowed like heavy liquid to the floor, with a slit that was modest when standing but daring when walking. It was a dress for a woman who wanted to be seen. She looked at her reflection in the vanity mirror. She applied her makeup with a heavier hand than usual. A smoky eye, a deep berry lip. She swept her hair up, but left tendrils loose around her neck, softening the severity of her usual style. She stepped into the dress. The velvet was cool against her skin, then warmed instantly. She looked in the mirror. The woman staring back didn't look like the weary innkeeper who fixed wiring problems. She looked regal. She looked alive. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Elena? Sarah's voice was muffled. The guests are starting to arrive. The governor's detail is at the gate. And Mr. Callaway is here. Elena took a deep breath, smoothing the velvet over her hips. I'm coming. The lobby of the Silver Birch Inn was a masterpiece of holiday decor. A 20-foot Fraser fir dominated the center, dripping with crystal ornaments. A string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner. The air smelled of pine, expensive perfume, and anticipation. Elena descended the grand staircase. She saw the heads turn. She was used to being watched. She was the hostess, after all. But tonight, the gaze felt different. It wasn't the critical assessment of her service. It was the appraisal of her presence. And then, she saw him. Liam was standing near the fireplace, holding a glass of scotch. If Elena had worried he would look out of place, those fears evaporated instantly. He wasn't wearing a rental. The tuxedo fit him with the kind of bespoke precision that suggested he hadn't spent his entire life in Carhartt jackets. It was a midnight black shawl collar tux, modern and sharp. His hair was tamed, combed back, revealing the strong lines of his face. He was talking to the town mayor, looking entirely at ease. But the moment Elena stepped onto the landing, he stopped mid-sentence. He looked up, Across the crowded room, their eyes locked. Liam didn't smile immediately. He just stared, a look of raw, unfiltered appreciation that hit Elena like a physical touch. He set his glass down on a passing tray and walked toward the stairs. He met her at the bottom step. "Elena," he said. His voice was low, pitched so only she could hear it under the swell of the violins. "You look devastating." Elena felt a smile tug at her lips, a genuine, unguarded thing. Devastating? Is that the goal? For everyone else in this room? Yes. Liam offered his arm. For me? You're just making it very hard to remember I'm supposed to be on my best behavior. She took his arm. His bicep was hard under the wool of the jacket. You clean up well, Mr. Callaway. I half expected a flannel cummerbund. I have hidden depths, he winked, ready to face the lions. The board is here, Elena whispered, nodding toward a group of 3 stern-looking individuals inspecting the molding near the entrance. Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Halloway, and Mr. Finch. They hold the fate of the historic rating in their hands. Then let's go charm them. They moved into the room. The reaction was immediate. Oak Haven was a small town, and the social hierarchy was rigid. Elena Vance, the divorced stoic proprietor, walking arm in arm with Liam Callaway, the contractor who was 15 years her junior, was fuel for 1,000 conversations. Elena held her head high, drawing strength from the solid warmth of Liam beside her. They circulated. Elena introduced Liam not as my contractor, but simply as Liam Callaway. Liam Callaway? Mrs. Gable, the town's most notorious gossip, peered at him over her champagne flute. Any relation to old man Callaway who did the cabinetry for the library? My grandfather, Liam said smoothly. I took over the family trade, restoring the old bones of this town. How quaint, Mrs. Gable sniffed, eyeing Elena. And how did you two meet? I didn't know you ran in the same circles, Elena. The implication was clear. He is the help. You are the lady of the manor. Elena stiffened, ready to deploy a polite, freezing deflection. But Liam beat her to it. We met over a structural crisis, Liam said, his tone pleasant but his eyes sharp. I was the only one in 3 counties with the skill to handle the specific ironwork this estate requires. Elena has an exacting eye for quality. She doesn't settle for standard work, in architecture or in company. He squeezed Elena's hand where it rested on his arm. It was a subtle, protective gesture. Mrs. Gable blinked, flustered by the confident rebuff. Well, she stammered, I suppose that's good. As they walked away, Elena leaned into him. Thank you. Don't thank me, Liam murmured, his jaw tight. I don't like bullies, even the ones wearing diamonds. The hour of judgment arrived at 9 p.m. Mr. Sterling, the head of the preservation board, approached them. He was a dry, dusty man who looked like he had been pressed between the pages of a history book. Mrs. Vance, he said, adjusting his spectacles. We've heard rumors of a catastrophic failure in the Solarium roof. We need to inspect the damage. A breach of that magnitude could compromise the structural rating. Of course, Elena said, her stomach twisting. Right this way. She led the 3 board members toward the Solarium. Liam walked beside her, silent but present. They pushed open the doors. The Solarium was breathtaking. The humidity was perfect. The ferns were lush. The candlelight reflected off the glass walls, creating a kaleidoscope of gold against the snowy night outside. Sterling walked to the center of the room, looking up at the cupola. He squinted. He took out a laser measure. He frowned. I was told the rib collapsed, Sterling said, pointing up. This ironwork looks original. There's no scarring, no modern welding marks. Elena opened her mouth to explain, but Sterling turned to Liam. You're the one who did this? I am. Liam stepped forward. How did you achieve that patina on the weld? Sterling asked, his voice losing its accusatory edge and gaining a tone of professional curiosity. That's a turn-of-the-century cast technique. Nobody does that anymore. It's too time-consuming. I used a heat sink method to localize the melt, Liam explained, shifting effortlessly into technical language. And I finished it with a chemical oxidation process to match the existing weathering. To replace it with modern steel would have been an insult to the architect. The structure had to flex with the wind, not fight it. Sterling listened, rapt. The other board members were nodding. And the glazing? Sterling asked. Temporary polycarbonate, high-grade, UV-coated, Liam said, but I've already sourced vintage panes from a salvage yard in Boston to be installed in the spring. It will be indistinguishable from the 1902 installation. Sterling stood silent for a moment, looking up at the invisible repair. He turned to Elena. Mrs. Vance, Sterling said, I see so many owners patch these old buildings with duct tape and prayers. To see this level of stewardship, this level of respect for the history, is rare. Your rating is safe. In fact, I'm noting a commendation for exceptional maintenance. Elena felt the breath rush back into her lungs. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. As the board members wandered off to find the hors d'oeuvres, Elena turned to Liam. Her eyes were shining. You did it, she whispered. You charmed Sterling. Nobody charms Sterling. He hates everything post-1950. I didn't charm him. Liam shrugged, though he looked pleased. I just spoke his language. We're both nerds about old iron. You saved me, Elena said. Again. Elena? Liam turned to her, his expression serious. The music from the ballroom drifted in, a slow jazz standard. I didn't do it to save you. I did it because you care about this place, and seeing you care about something that much, it makes me want to help you carry it. The air in the solarium suddenly felt very thick, very warm. They were alone in the corner, sheltered by the weeping fig. Dance with me, Liam said. It wasn't a question. He took her hand and pulled her into the center of the room, under the polycarbonate stars he had installed. Elena had danced 1,000 times at these galas. Obligatory waltzes with donors, stiff shuffles with politicians. This was different. Liam pulled her close, his hand firm on the small of her back. He was taller than her, broad and solid. She felt engulfed by him, protected. They moved to the faint rhythm of the music from the other room. They're all watching through the glass doors, Elena whispered, resting her forehead against his lapel. The staff. The guests. Let them watch, Liam said, his cheek brushing against her hair. Let them see the queen of the silver birch finally taking a night off. Elena closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she didn't possess the inn. She wasn't the manager. She was just a woman in the arms of a man who looked at her as if she were the only structural marvel in the room worth studying. I'm 43, Liam, she whispered into his chest. The insecurity clawed at her one last time. In the morning, the magic wears off. I have wrinkles. I have baggage. I have an ex-husband who calls me frigid. Liam stopped moving. He pulled back slightly so he could look into her face. His hazel eyes were fierce. Elena, look at me. She looked up. I don't care about the number. I don't care about the ex-husband, who sounds like an idiot, by the way. I've spent my life fixing things that people said were too old or too broken or too much trouble. And you know what I learned? The new stuff is cheap. It breaks. It has no soul. He brushed a thumb across her cheekbone. I like the history, he said softly. I like the lines. I like the strength it takes to stay standing. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Elena, and I'm not talking about the dress. Elena felt a tear slip free, hot and fast. She didn't wipe it away. It's almost midnight, she said, her voice trembling. Almost, Liam agreed. His gaze dropped to her mouth. The guests expect a toast, she said, though she made no move to leave his arms. They can wait, Liam said. Let them wait. He leaned down. The distance between them closed. He kissed her. It wasn't a tentative testing the waters kiss. It was absolute. It was the way he welded iron, deliberate, searing, and meant to fuse two separate things into something unbreakable. Elena's hands, having nowhere else to go, grasped the lapels of his tuxedo. He tasted like good scotch and something inherently, uniquely clean, like the cold air coming off the mountain. For a few seconds, the mortgage didn't exist. The bore didn't exist. The 60-year-old wiring didn't exist. The only thing that existed was the heat of his mouth and the terrifying realization that the armor she had spent 5 years carefully constructing around her heart was not just cracked, it was shattered. From the ballroom, a roar erupted. 10, 9, 8. The countdown, the intrusion of the outside world was jarring. They broke apart, breathless. Elena's eyes were wide, her berry lipstick smudged slightly. Liam looked equally shaken, his composure rattled. 7, 6. I have to go out. There, Elena gasped, the duty of the hostess kicking back in like an autonomic reflex. I have to do the toast. 5, 4. Liam didn't let go of her waist. Then let's go. Together? Elena hesitated, glancing toward the double doors. Liam, out there, it's not just us. It's the governor. It's the gossip columnists. It's the whole town. 3, 2. Liam smiled, a reckless, beautiful expression. Like I said, let them watch. He took her hand, intertwining their fingers. He pushed open the French doors just as the ballroom exploded into noise. Happy New Year! A deluge of gold and white confetti rained down from the ceiling nets. Horns blared. People were embracing, kissing, laughing. The band struck up Auld Lang Syne. Elena and Liam stood framed in the doorway of the Solarium. For a moment, nobody noticed them in the chaos. Then, a ripple effect occurred. Heads turned, glasses lowered. There stood Elena Vance, the Ice Queen of Oakhaven, her hair slightly undone, her lipstick imperfect, holding hands with the carpenter's grandson, who was 15 years her junior. She felt the collective intake of breath, the judgment, the curiosity. Beside her, Liam didn't flinch. His grip on her hand was ironclad. He looked at the crowd not with defiance, but with a quiet pride of ownership. Yes, his stance said, I am with her. And what are you going to do about it? Elena looked at the sea of faces. She saw Mrs. Gable whispering frantically to the mayor. She saw her assistant Sarah smiling broadly behind a tray of champagne. Then, Elena looked at Liam. She saw the man who had spent 3 days in freezing temperatures to save her roof, not for money, but because he respected the structure. She saw the man who defended her against socialites and charmed crusty historians on her behalf. She squeezed his hand back. Someone handed her a microphone. The music faded slightly. The room turned to her, expecting the standard speech about gratitude and future endeavors. Elena took a breath. Thank you all for coming. Her voice was clear, amplified through the cavernous room. It's been another challenging year for the Silver Birch. We've weathered storms, literal and metaphorical. She paused, looking up at the chandeliers, all burning brightly. They say that old buildings are a burden. They say you should tear them down and build something newer, shinier, easier to manage. She looked at Liam. But tonight I am reminded that some things only get stronger with age, that history isn't baggage, it's a foundation, and that sometimes the most valuable thing you can do is take a risk on something unexpected. She raised her glass. To the Silver Birch, to the new year, and to the people who help keep the roof over our heads. Here, here, the room responded, glasses clinking. Liam leaned in, whispering against her ear under the cover of the applause. Best speech you've ever given? I stole most of it from you, she murmured back, feeling lightheaded with relief. The band kicked into an upbeat swing number. The tension broke. The party resumed, though the dynamic had shifted. Elena Vance was no longer just the proprietor. She was the center of the evening's most interesting drama, and for the first time in her life, she didn't care. By 2:30 a.m., the last guest had stumbled out into the snow-covered night, clutching party favors and shoes. The inn was suddenly cavernous and silent, save for the clinking of glass as the catering staff began the massive cleanup. The floor was a sticky mosaic of spilled champagne and flattened confetti. Elena sat on a velvet ottoman in the lobby, her high heels kicked off. Her feet were throbbing. The adrenaline had crashed, leaving her exhausted to the bone. Liam walked over, carrying 2 mugs of coffee he'd scavenged from the kitchen. He had shed his tuxedo jacket and loosened his tie. "Staff is almost done in the ballroom," he said, handing her a mug. "Sarah said she'd handled the vendor checkouts in the morning. Go to bed, Elena." "I need to lock up," she murmured, inhaling the steam. "I need to check the solarium temperature one more time." "I already did. It's holding at a balmy 70 degrees, and I locked the front doors." Elena looked up at him over the rim of her mug. "You don't work here, Liam. You don't have to stay for the cleanup." He sat down on the floor in front of her ottoman, resting his back against her legs. It was a startlingly intimate gesture, one of easy familiarity. "I'm not leaving you to deal with this mess alone," he said quietly. He reached back and rubbed her calf, his strong fingers kneading the tight muscle. Elena groaned involuntarily at the relief. "Oh my God, don't stop," he chuckled low in his throat. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the staff haul bags of trash towards the back exits. "Mrs. Gable is going to have a field day tomorrow," Elena said, staring into her coffee. "The phone lines will melt." "Let them melt. Are you worried about it?" "I should be. I run a business that relies on reputation." "Elena," he stopped massaging her leg and turned to face her, resting his arms on her knees. "Your reputation is that you run the best damn inn in Vermont. Tonight didn't change that. If anything, it made you human. People like human." He reached up and gently pulled a hairpin from her tangled twist. Then another. Her dark hair tumbled down around her shoulders. "Besides," he said, his eyes darkening as he looked at her undone hair, "I don't think you're worried about the town. I think you're worried about us." Elena set her mug down on the floor. "There is no us, Liam. It's been 6 hours." "It's been 3 days," he corrected. 3 very intense days involving high-voltage welding and high-stakes socializing. Don't diminish it. "I'm 15 years older than you," she whispered, the final wall of defense coming up. "Liam, I listen to NPR. You probably listen to... I don't even know what people your age listen to. You want to travel, build things, make mistakes. I want stability. I want to pay off my mortgage and sleep for a week." Liam listened, his expression unreadable. "Are you done listing the reasons this is a bad idea?" he asked when she fell silent. "Yes." "Good." He stood up and extended a hand. "Come on." "Where?" "Upstairs. To your actual apartment, not this lobby." Elena hesitated. This was the precipice. Going upstairs meant crossing a line from a New Year's Eve flirtation into something real. "Liam," she warned, "if you come upstairs, I'm going to expect you to stay for breakfast. I don't do walk of shames in my own hotel." Liam laughed, a loud, joyous sound in the empty lobby. "Elena, if I come upstairs, I'm planning on making the breakfast." She took his hand. Elena woke up to blinding light. Her bedroom faced east, and the morning sun was reflecting off the snow, filling the room with a brilliance that felt almost aggressive. For a split second, she didn't know where she was or why she felt so profoundly, deeply rested. Then, she felt the weight of an arm draped over her waist. Memory crashed back in. The gala, the kiss, the confetti, the stares, the way he had looked at her when he closed her bedroom door. Not like a conquest, but like a homecoming. She froze. The familiar panic of the morning after set in. The harsh light of day was never kind to impulse decisions. She carefully turned her head. Liam was fast asleep, face down in the pillow, his dark hair messy. His bare shoulder was exposed above the quilt. He looked younger in sleep, the worry lines around his eyes smoothed out. He was 28, she was 43. Elena squeezed her eyes shut. What have I done? She thought. This is madness. He's going to wake up, see the sunlight hitting my crow's feet, realize he's in bed with a middle-aged woman who owns a lot of antique furniture and bolt. She started to slowly inch away, intending to slip into the bathroom and apply emergency moisturizer. His arm tightened around her waist, pulling her back against him. Where are you going? His voice was thick with sleep, muffled by the pillow. Bathroom, she lied quickly. He opened one hazel eye, regarding her skeptically. You're trying to escape so you can put on your armor before I fully wake up. Elena blushed, caught. Don't be ridiculous. Liam rolled onto his back, pulling her with him so her head rested on his chest. His skin was warm, his heartbeat was slow and steady. Elena, he rumbled, stop thinking. I can hear your brain buzzing from here. It's New Year's Day. The rules say we have to be lazy. I have to check out the vendors. I have to settle the accounts for the gala. I have to... Sarah is doing it, he said firmly. You pay her good. Money to be competent. Let her be competent. He ran a hand down her spine, sending shivers through her. Last night wasn't a mistake, Elena, he said, his voice sobering. In case that's what you're panicking about. Elena propped herself up on an elbow, looking down at him. The sunlight was unforgiving, illuminating everything. It's easy to say that in the dark, Liam, or when we're dressed up in tuxedos and gowns, but this is real life. This is Monday morning. It's actually Wednesday, he murmured, reaching up to tuck her hair behind her ear. And I happen to like Wednesday morning, Elena. No makeup, messy hair, still worrying about the mortgage. You're impossibly stubborn, she sighed, but the tension was leaking out of her shoulders. It's why I'm a good contractor. I don't give up on difficult projects. Is that what I am? A difficult project? The best kind, he smiled, pulling her down for a lazy, slow kiss that tasted of sleep and warmth. The kind that lasts forever, because they were built right the first time. Later, they finally made it downstairs. The inn was eerily quiet. The ballroom was empty, the floor shining clean, the confetti magically erased by the night staff. It was as if the party had never happened, save for the lingering scent of evergreen and stale champagne. They walked into the solarium. It was brilliantly sunny inside, the heat humming. The orchids looked vibrant. Liam walked to the center of the room and looked up at the polycarbonate patch. It held beautifully, he said, professional pride creeping into his voice. No leaks, no condensation. Elena stood beside him, looking up. She thought about the moment the branch had crashed through, the despair she had felt. It seemed like a lifetime ago. When will the real glass arrive? She asked. End of February, probably. It's coming from France. We'll need to wait for a thaw to install it properly. We? She repeated softly. He turned to her. Yeah, we. You need someone to manage the installation. And I need to make sure nobody else touches my work. He slid his hands into the pockets of his jeans, back in his Carhartt uniform today. Are we okay, Elena? He asked. For real? Because if you want me to back off, if the town talk is going to be too much for you, tell me now. I'll finish the job and I'll stay away. Elena looked around her beautiful, expensive, demanding inn. It was her legacy, her burden, and her pride. For so long, she had thought it was enough. She looked at Liam. He was standing there, solid and capable, offering her something she hadn't realized she was starving for. Partnership. Not just in business, but in the messy business of living. The age gap was there. The gossip would happen. It would be complicated. But looking at him standing under the light that he had restored, Elena realized that for the first time in a very long time, she wasn't just maintaining the past. She was looking forward to the future. She stepped close to him, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heart. "Don't you dare stay away, Liam Callaway," she whispered. "We have a lot of work to do."